We return as we continue to set sail here. Feeling the FOMO. Are you feeling the FOMO of ordinals? Because if you don't feel it yet, you may feel it in a few tabs here, let me tell you. Artist Journal, January 18th, 2024, broadcasting from the editor's desk on the pirate ship of the mind, navigating the high seas of the imagination in Berlin, Germany. My name's Adrian Pocobelli, and welcome back. How exciting was this? And again, Bitcoin, art on Bitcoin, the whole idea of putting art on Bitcoin, I mean, it's kind of like, one analogy is, a lot of art was made with gold, right? Actually, the first thing that came across my mind was actually, Salvador Dali working with jewelry. But of course, I mean, you go back, go to the Vatican, go to even St. Peter's, all that religious art made of gold or gold plated oftentimes. Egyptian art made of gold, right? Or jewelry, right? Retaining its value, right? I mean, in other countries, they keep their jewelry. It's like a form of holding gold, right? And so it's just such a tantalizing prospect. Again, it's a different, for those that might not be aware, and I'm kind of learning this as I go. Again, I'm not some blockchain expert here, but I am familiar. I've kind of been in this world for a few years, actually, now, fall, summer of 2020. So the years are starting to add up here. And the difference here on Bitcoin, again, it's remember from a few shows ago, for those that saw it, this is like putting your art on a penny, for example. And so inscribing it onto a penny, again, it's like making an artwork of gold, out of gold. The gold itself has value, but putting your artwork on the gold kind of makes it even more precious. There's something particularly precious, a word I tend to use mostly with physical art. One of the qualities I would argue you're trying to do, to create with physical art is to make something precious, to make it feel like it has value, like that this is something of worth. And so there's something incredibly precious when you see this ordinal here inscribed by Uxine. There's something incredibly just kind of precious looking, and interestingly, kind of weirdly, a weird phenomenon, I would say, of this whole experience of art on Bitcoin is the aesthetic that is joined up with it on files having to be a low size. It's almost becoming, I would actually argue it already is a part of this aesthetic of art on Bitcoin, I would argue. And it's I was talking to someone yesterday, an artist, and it was hilarious, actually, because she was mentioning, just here in Berlin, she was mentioning that the whole last 30 years of digital art, we've been trying to make our files bigger. And now we're trying to make them smaller. And once we have the AI tech to credibly make our files bigger, now we're trying to make them as small as possible, almost like we're going insane here. But again, it's a wonderful challenge. And it is a very, the aesthetic is like, again, working within the context of a medium can be a very fun way. It gets you creative. Right. And there is some creativity here in, like, you can see, like, here we have 108 bytes. And from my understanding, I was just looking this up, I assumed 1,000 bytes in a kilobyte. It's actually 1,024. Interestingly, I didn't know that. And so I would say this is actually not a tiny file, if I'm reading this right, for Bitcoin, for Bitcoin, because. And again, feel free to correct me, anybody out there that might know better than myself. I'm going on my personal experience, my back of the napkin calculations here, okay? So my experience of putting art or inscribing rather than minting, inscribing on Bitcoin is it's about $10 per kilobyte. Okay, about or every 1,024 bytes is about $10 is what it costs you around these days. So this is 108,000, meaning this, in theory, if my calculations are correct, would be about $1,000 to mint. And it's sold, we'll see that in a second, how much it sold for 0.069. Can't remember how much that was. Maybe I'll quickly look that up. But before we go there, still a small file when we consider it within the context of digital art, right? Only 100 kilobytes, as far as I understand. But nevertheless, a significant size for Bitcoin. Now, the content type here, the format, the file type is significant here. We've seen it once before, at least, with Ripcache, and we're going to look at a Ripcache work here, this SVG and XML. And I think I was even speculating a few days ago, maybe a week ago, on, oh, isn't that interesting how Ripcache is using that? Maybe there's something there that's keeping this file smaller. And so I actually did a search on that. So we're going to take a closer look at this file type. I asked ChatGPT, tell me more basically about SVG and XML. Well, what's going on there? So all to say, this was made on Ordinal's wallet, where you can inscribe, as you see here. And we haven't even looked at the work yet, but it's that simple. Actually, start a wallet on Ordinal's, upload file, and it's that simple. So let me go back to that work here. Let's actually look at the work very quickly as well. Importantly, that beautiful matte black you see here, actually, and it's hard to magnify this, so I'm just going manually with the browser here. You see, this is Uxine's trademark matte black, I would argue, or one of his trademark kind of characteristics is this interesting matte black, and apologies for the Bitcoin balance there. And so just a really cool work. I mean, what do we see here? We see different kinds of pixels, or at least large pixels contrasting with small pixels here, right? There seems to be three kinds of different styles of visual styles, let's say, speaking very loosely, that are going on here. We have the halo around our kind of hooded crypto figure, which is interestingly animated. And SVG, I mean, this is a lot smoother animation than a GIF, isn't it? It seems that way to me. So again, we're working within the context of the Bitcoin limitations as far as price and keeping files down. SVG and XML will also bring its own qualities here, and it looks like it can animate fairly well in a way that kind of GIF is a little bit more jagged, shall we say, or choppy. So first of all, there's this large pixel halo. There is the hoodie here of a smaller pixel kind, and even the way the pixels are kind of reminds me of Kareem Safa. Remember in that work we saw maybe a couple of months ago with the eyes, and I think it was a self-portrait. It's almost like that style of pixel here with it also a different color. But perhaps the same color that this ends up on, maybe saving file size. And finally, we have the computer here, which seems to be its own kind of rendered treatment with the smiley face inside, a different color here. Also, maybe that's the color that the halo ends on. Actually, that's what it looks like. So, and also a blue in this kind of, again, kind of pixelated computer, all together, and just kind of fading off into the black here. And all together making, I'd say, a pretty stunning work. When you really understand, I would argue, the limitations of Bitcoin and everything that's coming into play here, I'd say, I don't know about you, and I assume you've already seen this, but if you haven't, when I first saw this, especially knowing that it was a work on Bitcoin, I was in awe. I just thought, and then again, that shimmer of it being on Bitcoin, that phenomenon, I would argue, shone through the work. Okay, so just another interesting situation here in our ongoing journey. Inscription 55451-816. So let's look at what happened here. Thank you, Xenosec, for collecting my first SVG that I inscribed on B. And here, 0.069 Bitcoin. I'm going to quickly look that up here, just for our information on how much this sold for. I think it was about, I'm not sure if it was 2 or 4. I have it loading up here. Of course, we want to know this. And very slowly, okay, here we go. 0.069 is $2,925. So, and again, 108,000 bytes. So I'm assuming this costed about $1,000 to mint. I'm not positive on that, but that is my understanding based on my experience. So congratulations to Uxine. Really, really nicely done. And I'd say from a market perspective, I mean, Uxine's a very, I'd say, astute player on this whole blockchain, in blockchain, in the sense of recognizing maybe, perhaps, who knows, now is not necessarily the time with a softer market on ETH and people kind of getting, remember we saw that tweet, I think it was last show, where someone was pointing out that why would you kind of, from a just purely pragmatic financial investment perspective, one of one art on, say, Ethereum is not necessarily at top of mind because you don't have the liquidity with tokens that could theoretically be going up quite a bit, or at least that's what's been happening. People have been making money off their coins. And of course, when you're buying and selling art, it's not a liquid investment. Yeah, you can sell it potentially, but it's not the most liquid investment. Let's call it that way. So there's not a massive, there's still an appetite out there, but it's not as massive as it was, say, during the bear market when there's almost nothing to do other than buy art. To a certain degree, one could argue. And one could expect this is going to come back. Everything's cyclical. So it doesn't mean it's not going to come back, but it might mean, there's an opportunity cost, let's put it this way, to buying art right now. So I thought quite a brilliant move by Uxine, I would argue, and same with Ripcash, who's been all over this for at least, I'd say a month or two, right? Maybe even 3 or 4 months, maybe longer, not sure, but has been all over this story, to Ripcash's credit here. So here, speaking of Ripcash, animated SVG, this is a Ripcash. So again, delightfully small. Again, part of these limitations of minting on Bitcoin, and I'm still noticing this animation here of the color. It feels smoother than GIF. So I assume this is, look, animated SVG. Animated SVG. So again, a file format to look at. And finally on this piece here, what a delightful contrast with almost, it looks like a squiggle here with the black and white, beautifully pixelated surveillance camera here by Ripcash. So all very interesting. Just to wrap up on this discussion here, what is the SVG XML file format? So ChatGPT. The Scalable Vector Graphics is SVG, and XML, Extensible Markup Language file format, is a two-dimensional graphic format that defines images in XML format. It's a standard maintained by the World Wide Web Consortium, so a pretty solid standard, one could argue, and is specifically designed for describing two-dimensional vector and mixed vector raster graphics in XML. And that is probably what we're seeing here, a raster being the pixels, and maybe, not sure if the vector would be the animation or not. Maybe that's a bridge too far. I mean, vector, of course, as many of you know, that is more of a mathematical way of building images in terms of, if you know, Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, the pen tool, that makes vector graphics, which in theory are infinitely scalable, and you keep the smooth edges. Again, it uses more math to get those curves. Raster, of course, is more pixelation and more what you're used to with JPEG photography. as most of us know. Let's keep running here, though. Here are some of the key points about SVG and XML format in the context of images. Vector graphics, unlike raster images, JPEG and PNG, as we were just mentioning, that represent images as a grid of pixels, SVG graphics are made up of lines, shapes, and text. This means they can be scaled to any size without losing quality, which makes them ideal for responsive web design. XML-based SVG images are written in XML. So isn't this interesting? It's a way of writing an image in a fairly, I think, compact markup language here, a markup language that shares many similarities with HTML. Each element and attribute in the SVG file corresponds to a part of the image, making them searchable, interestingly, editable, and scriptable in theory. Isn't that interesting? Interactivity and animation, SVG supports interactivity. I mean, for all the people who are doing interactive works and animation, which we've seen in both those SVG works, elements in an SVG file can be animated or made interactive with JavaScript and CSS. This makes SVG a powerful tool for creating dynamic and interactive graphics for the web. So, interestingly, is there JavaScript in there then? It sounds like it. Accessibility, text inside SVG images is selectable and searchable. This makes content in SVG images more accessible than content in raster images, interestingly. Compact file size. For graphics that involve geometric shapes, SVG files tend to be smaller than their raster counterparts. However, the file size can grow with the complexity of the image. Compatibility, SVG is compatible with most modern web browsers. Remember the standard W3 standard we were looking at there, without the need for plugins. SVG images can be embedded directly into HTML web pages. Finally, editability, an SVG is XML-based. It can be edited with any text editor. As SVG is XML-based, it can be edited with any text editor as well as with specialized vector graphics editing software. In summary, the SVG XML file format is powerful for creating and using vector-based graphics on the web due to its scalability, interactivity, accessibility, and compatibility with web standards. So super duper interesting and just a brilliant, to cap us off here, a brilliant meme here playing on the Spider-Man meme a la Uxine, beautifully painted. Again, you see that matte black and awesomely almost X-ray versions of Spider-Man there, hilariously. And of course, needless to say, this is an X glitch. I follow Uxine indeed, as you see here. And here is one more pretty hilarious, hilarious painting here with the hug. So always keeping an interesting feed going on there on the social media too. So very impressive. And just to notice here, look at how painterly, Uxine's profile picture is here. The skull, so to speak, is very painterly done, done in a painterly way. Nice textures, and you see a little bit of flashing here, holding this Mac with no screen, hugging. So beautiful work there and just exciting, just very exciting. We're going to have more on ordinals, actually, in a few tabs here. Looking forward to a great space. So we had a great space here, and big thank you to Michele Colonna for yesterday. Super interesting discussion on Colonna Contemporary. The gallery Michele has opened, really, from what I understood, bringing on artists from the NFT scene and giving them a physical place to show their work and to make physical work. And there's a brilliant exhibition. So it was super interesting. There were technical issues that we had no control over. It was X, actually. All of the spaces yesterday on X had issues with people not being able to hear them on their phone. So you had to listen on desktop, or you had to join the stage, and then when you were a speaker on stage, it would work. You could hear. So all to say, if you missed that yesterday, and thank you for everybody's patience and all the messages yesterday during the space letting me know, you can listen to it here in the recording. It is in my Twitter feed, and it's super interesting. And also, big thank you to Dina Chang, who was filling in for the. How am I blanking on our? How am I blanking? Runetune. Thank you for filling in for Runetune here for the next 3 weeks on the spaces. So Runetune is in Vietnam and in Bangkok. So can't wait to hear about that. Big shout out to Runetune. And again, thank you to Dina Chang and Michele Colonna. It was an awesome discussion. It was a ton of fun. And here is the show, actually, just for example, that Michele is doing with Bear Boy. Sold more green than peas to Anon. So just a super interesting, cool artist here. Beautiful textures. And look at this, just torn canvas, really, or just cut canvas here. It's just, remember I was discussing the preciousness. And that's one of the things I would argue you're going for in physical art. You're trying to make things precious. You're trying to make them like they're valuable, I would argue. Here's another one from Kelowna Contemporary, standing room only bathtub. Look at how cheap these are. 11 by 14 inches, mixed media on canvas. You get the NFT, $400 or 0.2 ETH. As far as I understood, the show is half sold out. And again, for the contemporary art scene, that is not a bad showing, and they're pretty reasonably priced, a lot of these images. So the pricing is quite smart as well. So all to say, thank you, everybody who checked it out as well. Just a couple of comments here. Rosetio, make art stress-free. That's what I need to hear. Thank you, Adrian. Great show as always. Thank you for the comment, Rosetio. And just on that point, remember the reason, what is Rosetio talking about? Remember the person I was showing, painting the board, airbrushing in the image, and where I was saying, when you have a process, you don't need to really worry too much about every tiny little detail that you do, and make it, it's not a Renaissance painting, it's about the process, which I'd argue is somewhat of a modern way of thinking about building images. So glad you enjoyed that, Rosetio. That was a revelation to myself at a certain point where I thought, it's about building processes. Like what do we celebrate, say in Warhol? It's the process to a certain degree. It's that he can paint anything underneath. You can screen print on top, and then you screen print, black on top, and then maybe another color, or first another color, then the black, and it all works. And you don't even need to think about it. Get the assistant to do it, which he literally did, or you have two people doing it, so the authorship starts. So what is it about? It's about the process. And you see this over and over. What is Gerhard Richter, who does all these different series? I mean, what are they? They are different processes, right? So glad you're appreciating that. And thank you, Tom Bombattle, for the comment there. Also comments on Twitter here. Great episode. Thank you, Human Boy. Ex-Mortal, this was hilarious. We'll put Art Bell here. Thanks for the disclosure shout. I think he meant disclosure shout, Adrian. Love the Art Bell reference. I hope I didn't read that wrong. I think it was disclosure, but maybe it was disclosure. All to say, we all love Art Bell over here. And there is the great Art Bell. If you're a Terence McKenna fan, and you don't know Art Bell that much, there's great interviews on YouTube of Art Bell interviewing Terence in the 90s. Those are legendary episodes. Also, thank you, VLDZ. Lily Illo, great episode. Thanks so much for the shout out. The chairs are feeling the love, and I think we have another one today. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Yoao. And this sounds like Ed Marola. Great to hear from you, Ratingo Tego Dego. And Nikau, thanks for the link there. And let's continue. So back to our discussion here. We're back on ordinals. I'm loving this story here. And yeah, let's just look at what's going on here. Acid Boy, 32 of 100 planktons collected. I think this is the new one. So Acid Boy is hitting it out of the park here. I think with Gamma's platform, and now, where it's like the lazy minting, I think, or the prints. I'm still working out which one. I'm still doing the research here, but all to say, very cool from Acid Boy here. Hopefully we don't have too many internet problems here. So just really cool, animated abstraction from Acid Boy. I think out of Montreal, I was seeing on his profile there. Let's continue here. Leonidas. In 2023, ordinals were born. In 2024, ordinals take over the whole game. And there's something, again, the way I would put this, of course, Leonidas, it's almost a little troll-like to a certain degree, but there's a method to this madness, and it's not a crazy thought. It's not a crazy thought that ultimately Bitcoin, if they figure out the layer 2 business, then what? Right? Then what? And, so this, I don't think this is crazy at all, and we have more from Leonidas here. Top 10,000 ordinals collection floor is 0.18 BTC. So the node monkeys, those are at, 3 ETH. Okay. which is about, I'm saying maybe $8,000 or $9,000, right? The top 10,000 Ethereum collection floor is 58 ETH, or 3.5 Bitcoin. Bitcoin is 3 times larger than Ethereum and heading into the largest crypto bull market ever. So interesting, right? Very, very interesting. Leonidas breaking 1.5 million assets under management. Franklin Templeton is bullish on ordinals. And here's the tweet: ordinals and layer 2 solutions on Bitcoin shouldn't be ignored. And again, this isn't a financial advice program, but I completely agree. Just giving my 2 cents on that, and so these are vital to solving Bitcoin's economic security problem and increasing BTC's utility as a store of value. So watch this space, and it's worth paying attention to from just a purely investment point of view. And again, not financial advice, and I'm sure I'll be buying all sorts of layer 2s and whatever, so I'll be in there too, just to be completely transparent. Same with the ordinals. Rinnyfish, this was sad news. GM, my friends, my ETH wallet was hacked while I was on a flight this afternoon. And it's funny because I was flying recently and I was thinking about using there was something I wanted to do using MetaMask, and then I was like, I don't think I want to use this on this kind of public, but I was like, nothing's going to happen. I thought to myself, but here, I mean, this kind of, so warning here, so Rinnyfish's ETH wallet was hacked. It's a super weird and unpleasant experience. I've hardly used my wallet these days because I've been in the middle of my trip. Still processing, thanks for the big help. And here are the new and the old foundation pages. And so here is Rinnyfish 01. And so here's the old one. So this is kind of or maybe this is the old one, and this is the new one with 1 follower, right? So check that out and go support Rinnyfish there. This is an artist's worst nightmare. And it doesn't even sound like, there was some link that was clicked. Here's the wallet, is super weird. And I messaged Rinnyfish just saying, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's terrible news. And she said other artists were reporting a similar issue. So all to say, take all precautions you can on your ETH wallet right now. Because again, this is your worst nightmare. So you may not, if you're connected to sites, you may want to remove all the connections in your MetaMask. So just so you know, Louis Osborne dropping next Wednesday. So Louis Osborne is dropping on Solana. So it continues here. Let these artworks be your inspiration. So on the front page here, and the Exchange art team has been very active on their homepage, and they're doing a great job over at exchange.art. So check that out if you are a Louis Osborne collector. Ed Marola. I want to live on a purple beach under the sweet shadow of a purple tree. To fund this stream, I began selling tokens on the blockchain. These tokens are mostly scraps of metaphysical, poetic knowledge in pixels and sound. The goal is to create digital mindfulness devices. So kind of some, just poetic statement here from Ed Marola that I thought was worth highlighting here. Just kind of beautiful thoughts from this very prolific artist on the blockchain here. Green Ginger, another pixel artist. Late Good Morning Wednesday, rendering the grasslands of PixSquare. So here, if you work on tablet, I've played with this software. I haven't released anything that I've used on it. It's a pretty cool software. If you're looking for, because of course Aseprite, I don't know why they don't do a tablet version. Maybe because it feels kind of open sourcey. Aseprite, just with the weird, you pay $70 to buy Aseprite for your desktop. I'm not sure why they don't put Aseprite on tablet, because it seems like a huge opportunity. Maybe it's more complicated than it sounds, probably. Nevertheless, if you're looking for an interesting software, this is an interesting one, PixSquare. And here you see the user interface here in Green Ginger at work. So just so you know, we like to follow that here. And this was a super interesting post. Studying some ancient pixel art today, Federico de Vinciolo, 1589. La licorne contient une hauteur 4.4 miles. So in French, it's amazing that's readable. La licorne, I think that's the unicorn, if I'm not mistaken, continues, has a height of 4.4 and maybe meters. Not sure if they had meters at that point, but all to say, how cool is that? Pixel art from 1589, and there are some other ones here too. This lion has this long length and height, so using the pixels as a way of measurement, again, almost looks like a Dali watch. I guess that's like a kind of saddle of sorts on the lion. Almost looks like a melting soft watch there on this lion. But here's an idea, for works that could be minted on, like this could be minted on ordinals for very cheap. I would think for $10, $20 maybe. That looks like a 2 kilobyte file if you're to make that. So interesting there. And also, let's just look at the last one here. Look at this, fairly complex. And again, using these pixels as a way of measuring. Here it's, width by height or by length. Very cool post from Chris there. Captain, who also I follow, a pattern used for a pot of the first season of plants. So as we look at pixel art here, so isn't this interesting? Like, as far as I understand this then, maybe this is a brush of a certain kind, I think, that was made by Captain. A pattern used for a pot. So it looks like, because you see this is almost like it looks square, right? So probably this is a brush that was made. And so you see just how original. Here's a way to make original pixel art like Cap'n does. Zooming in here, here is one way, interestingly. So just very cool posts there from Cap'n. And look at this, Spiegels. 8 by 8 by 8. Look at Spiegels Maskinen has been putting out some pretty interesting work, like kind of pushing his art's boundaries, and I think we see it here. So pretty interesting. Again, a big experimenter here too. Of course, minted on chain in Ethereum for sure. I'm not sure if I'm kind of like watch this space as far as Spiegels putting something on ordinals. I'm not sure if that's happened yet, but it's begging to happen, isn't it? Pretty nice piece here, by the way, Spiegels. Continuing on, Cloud Noise, GN with the Ghosts of Brutalism, Habitat Work in Progress in homage to the amazing Spiegels Maskinen. So someone doing, Cloud Noise doing a homage to Spiegels here, and we see the dithering here, a work in progress. So interesting piece there. As we go into the art, just some more work that seems to fit the last couple of pieces here. This is Brawn, and I thought this was pretty cool. These kind of, we've kind of been making a big deal of these different kinds of pixels. There are different kinds of pixels, based on ratio and whatnot. And here we see kind of like older, kind of wider pixel here in this work. So just interesting abstract here, and interesting to see these different kinds of, for lack of a better term, retro pixels here. Embroidery number 5. And I think, so as you can see here, this is on Object, and here's Braun, multimedia artist, NFT artist collector, exploring organic and generative pixel movement, and give them a follow here. And here you see the last 6 embroideries. So just cool work there. Here's another one, again, seeming to use that wide kind of range, kind of, for lack of a better term, wide angle pixel here, as you see. So just really interesting animated abstract there. Here's another one using a different kind of pixel, almost like sampling, sort of like we're seeing there. Here you don't see the wide pixel. It's more of a square pixel, and almost doing things perhaps a little bit like we were seeing with Cap'n there. Maybe making, painting with your own kind of pixel-made brushes. Which, if you're going to be a digital artist, you might as well make your own kind of pixels like Cap'n was doing there. Right? And don't forget what we were seeing also in Aseprite with the tile set. Like, so again, part of the challenge of being a digital artist today is you got to kind of pick your lane for a little bit and then do something, at least, because you can be all over the place if you're not careful here. So all to say, though, there's a ton of interesting directions to go on in this incredibly exciting, area in the arts here. As RJ said on a Spaces, about a year ago, maybe 10 months ago, this is the most exciting place in culture, he said, and I totally agree with him. That's why I do this. Continuing on, Nicholas Sassoon with another kind of animated abstract here, new RGB study. And so this is a GIF, probably a little bit more lo-fi on Twitter here, but interesting work here from Nicholas Sassoon as ever. How's it doing? 5,000 views, pretty good. A lot of retweets, so getting some action there. Let's see. This is a really cool... I'm going to see if my internet is working. Good, beautiful. This is Score and Sky Goodman. And what seems to be happening in this work here, what does this look like to you? Like, this looks like that facial recognition technology type stuff, or where it can recognize an object. It's kind of like AI. It seems to be applied here, perhaps, just speculating, on an abstract. And then so you start putting this thing that's normally designed for probably security cameras, and then you put this on top. I'm just speculating out loud here. That's kind of what it looks like to me. A pretty interesting piece, isn't it? On object here, speculative, loved the title, speculative landscape number 5, heavy weather. Maybe using a weather map as the source, perhaps, 1920 by 1920, smart size there. So again, Sky Goodman and Saiko Ihara, and Saiko's been on the Spaces. Sky's going to be on in March, just got a confirmation there, so I'm excited about that. And this is an edition of 15 and selling out, or maybe offers are in. So offers are coming in, so you can still put an offer in. So nice offers coming in here for Speculative Landscape number 5 by Saiko and Sky. So continuing on here, this is a year old, this work, but I had never seen it, and I've become a big fan of Martin Bruce's work in the last few months here, last 2 or 3 months. Thunderstorm Web, my only piece on Solana. So this came out a year ago. I was looking on Solana. Nice piece here from Martin Bruce on Solana. So just highlighting that one. And here's another really interesting piece. This is Nov 1914, Amigas, Friends. Here, 1 of 1 for 10 Tezos here from the super interesting Nov 1914 here, working with gradients and teddy bears. A nice, it's experimental, but it's still like as a composition, it's easy to understand, and it's more accessible than some of the other ones. I assume this is probably sold by now. I assume. And it's tempting to call this a masterpiece here. I saw this, again, you could easily have started the show with this, but we just started with the myth. And we have, there's a lot going on in this space. The color on this gorgeous, gorgeous artwork by the myth, this brilliantly chosen, I guess that's a violet, a light violet, light purple, mixing with the white and the black gloves here. This gorgeous portrait of Muhammad Ali. Just a stunner here in this boxing series by Myth. This sold out. I was out of Tez. Otherwise, I would have happily have picked this up. A really nice collector base here. Rat Cloak, Morlakos, Mikey Wilson, Rorich, District 468, and more. So, in a sense, the work speaks for itself on this one. Just a gorgeous work from Myth here. With this Boxer series. And again, Pixel Brush on Procreate. So kind of emulating a little bit the Microsoft Paint style on Procreate. Beautiful. Edition of 10. And it was only 10 Tezos each. What a steal. Beautiful work here. This is from Rat Cloak here. And this is a 1 of 1 called Wheatfield. And let's just make it big here. So another very painterly, kind of almost, I want to say, distorted kind of... It seems like there's a transform going on at some point in this work. Not positive on that. A beautiful kind of painterly work here as we see in the sky from Rat Cloak. Cool kind of logos and references, almost referencing earlier work here with this cowboy. Looks familiar, and again, looking like a wheat field of sorts. And this is a 1 of 1, and it went to Rorich for only 70 Tezos. So nice sale nevertheless in this market, $75. And of course, Tezos is above $1. So bringing home the bacon there. So good deal for everybody, really. And beautiful hat there. Tempting to see this as a self-portrait, isn't it? A very nice piece. Spiritual Noise. This is by Da Taste. And this is an edition of 10 for 4 Tezos. And as you see here, interesting work with this running person here. Kind of reminiscent of those early photographic movement studies. What is the name? Usually I know this name. There were two big photographers in the 1880s, 1890s who were studying movement. And for some reason, E.J. Marie, right? And then there's the other guy. It'll come to me eventually. It doesn't matter. This is, it kind of feels like a reference to that, which would be super cool. Interestingly, across here, and then interesting, kind of a cosmic feeling where this is almost wallpaper and then bricks underneath and kind of cosmic imagery in the background. Nice touch. And here the wallpaper, seemingly wallpaper, is kind of ripped off here. And then this very interesting floor here. And then this figure here with a logo on the pants there, interestingly, as well as on the jacket. No pupils, even airbrushed out a little bit, or softer eyebrows here. Yves Saint Laurent. Again, something you remember from Rat Cloak does a lot. Kind of using these kind of modern clothing, Myth 2. So a very interesting and cool work from De Taste. Great title, too. Kind of nice ambiguity in this work, too. It's not obvious what's going on, and that is actually nice. It's not didactic, as my friend would say. So 4 have been sold here for 4 Tezos, edition of 10. Burka Bayram, 7 Tezos, edition of 20. Really interesting piece here, of course, instantly recognizable as Burka Bayram. You see the illustrative style. Interesting juxtaposition of imagery, isn't it? It looks like different kinds of sailing vessels, maybe over in Asia, and then you see an octopus, and then this almost looks like it's underwater here. But then here we have, there's almost something kind of ancient feeling, because then you have the ox maybe pulling the cart, and maybe people at the market here, and more, and then there's some food, some real universal elements going on here. Maybe even a little bit of battling there. Journey. This artwork is minted as part of the Nippon Pon exhibition at Ororo Sushi Bar in Istanbul. So very cool. Maybe it does have a bit of a kind of Japanese feeling to it, doesn't it? So beautiful work there. 7 Tezos, Mech.txt, Uxine Collecting, Amelia Versace, OMG, and more. Very, very cool work there. 7 Tezos. Louis Osborne with a work in progress here. So doing a lot of work in progresses recently, which is a great way to just get your work out there, kind of maximize your kind of the PR side of your art. Show the work in progress, especially if it's looking good. And here is the first one, and then an update. How much longer? So this is on January 17th, and then maybe a day later you get the update. Just very cool. Classic Louis Osborne colors here. So also a way to kind of get people excited about the work when you eventually do mint it. Here is another work, Encounter Among the Fields. This is by 409, Safe Dave, so probably out of Germany here. And I think we were looking at this artist before, who I believe is on Super Rare, kind of these surreal illustrations here. Very interesting piece. Looks like a surreal abstract. And continuing on, Luciana Guerra with a interesting, beautiful abstract here with a really moving description here. Today would have been 5 years since I lost my mother. I think about her every day and wish I could see her one more time. Eyes without a face. Powerful, powerful statement there. And here is the work. So beautiful work from Luciana Guerra as usual. Continuing on, beautiful abstract. Here's another abstract by Mikkel Noelsen, Hokusai Boogie Woogie. So maybe making reference there to the Hokusai wave, the very famous work, 48 Sol. And you know what? Mikkel Noelsen, I guess this came out a month ago. That's only, in a sense, that's only $4,000, because Mikkel Noelsen is one of the biggest, and I do follow Mikkel. I do it on a different browser. Look at how much Mikkel has sold. One of the big artists on Solana, if you're not aware, $109,000. And you can even just see here, last sold for 81. This work here. I mean, Mikkel's page is very impressive. Last sold for 46, 18. So if you're not familiar with Mikkel's work on Sol, last sold for 136 Sol. So has a big collector's base. Last sold for 230 Sol. So that is Mikkel's work there. My browser is kind of freezing on me a little bit here. So let's see Mikkel Noelsen's work there. Let's see if we are going to be okay here. There we go. Okay, Mumble Boy, how are we doing for time? We're doing excellent. We're doing excellent. Seal and Air. Digital collage. So a new digital collage here from Mumble Boy. I picked up a couple of the other ones. Just really interesting work here. And if we zoom in, you see all the work that goes into this. It's almost beyond collage to a certain degree. Once you start seeing this kind of this brushwork, this spray paint kind of airbrush in the background, it almost feels beyond digital collage, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, interesting work. You start to feel like you see something and then it gets interrupted. So kind of playing with representation and abstraction. Interesting piece, especially when you zoom out. So just very interesting work. Seal and Air. So let's keep going here. This is a 1 of 1 and sold to 1 of 1. So for 3 Tezos, good deal. Very good deal. Here is Lucas Lejeune and Neo, Dynamic Scan. Collaboration between Lucas Lejeune and Neo. Let's see if we can play it. Just a little bit of volume, a little bit of audio. Pretty interesting piece. Frankly, I haven't seen anything quite like it. Kind of mysterious with the music there too, and interesting play on scanning, dynamic scan. So just very interesting work here. 15 Tezos, edition of 20, and they are starting to sell here. Scarlett and Andrew Art picking up a couple. Very interesting piece. Here's another one that could maybe hang in the same show. Kim Asendorf, Cargo 817, also a black and white work. Kind of a mysterious piece here too. What really kind of caught my eye here was the composition idea. Almost having these squares here that just reveal themselves, as we see at the top there. Interesting compositional format, shall we say, or interesting composition. Let's put it that way. Very cool. Here is Figments with a 1 of 1 for 111 Tezos here. Beautiful work here. And again, playing with dithering, just an interesting contrast of the kind of dithered figure on the right, static, and then this beautiful RGB figure on the left in those beautiful horizontal pixels there, using that software probably that's used for the entire Figments catalog there. Beautiful work here from Figments. So 111 Tezos, a 1 of 1. What was the title on that? The Silent Space Between the Thoughts. Always poetic there. Here's another one by the same artist going under Figments as well. Kind of mixing the plants from the Plant series, which is interesting. So another work here by Figments using plants. And here we see these kind of cycling horizontal pixels. And here, maybe another plant here, not exactly sure what this thing on the right is. And again, contrasting this movement with this static area in the pot. Look at how beautiful the pot is. Maybe I can zoom in a bit. I think there are issues. There are issues sometimes with the GIFs, zooming in on GIFs. I think it's a little trickier. Yeah, here we can't do it. So, but you can see here, beautiful pixels. In the pot, and just a nice little gradient, just some random stuff here almost. Nice touch. It helps. Popple with a new work here. Hello, Darkness, my old friend. I had Simon and Garfunkel in my head all morning because of this work. Hello there. So here, edition of 25, interesting piece. Of course, Popple's working on the video game. Makes you wonder if it's related here. And we see almost like a touch of a crypto art work here, like more crypto art feeling, shall we say, with the skeleton and just everything, the glitchery. All to say, very cool work here from Popple as usual. Edition of 25, selling for 13 Tezos, and it looks like there are only a couple left. So get it while you can. 800 by 800 pixels. Juana Pedro. This was on Instagram, and I thought just an interesting kind of pixelated, rasterized, or dithered abstract is what I'm going for here, from the Liquania collection. This is on Object, interestingly. This is the artist, I guess, that we saw here. Really interesting piece there. So interesting abstracts coming from that artist. Here is Rustic Digital Art. And a very interesting, always, again, pushing the boundaries here. Again, playing with the screenshot, has Ableton Live, hilariously. in the background there, and then this big pixelated motorcycle guy, and then some Mario icons, and you see a little bit of Duck Hunt, some Pac-Man, big question mark. This one's a little fuzzy, this one's crystal clear, always playing with irrational ideas here, rustic digital art. And look at the tanks. So a lot of video game imagery here. Almost making works out of kind of found imagery on video games to a certain degree with a touch of Ableton Live. Life Is. That is, there's a great title. That's a great, went to Morlacos for 15 Tezos. So 1 of 1 for a pretty reasonable price. Coxbox, KOXBOX has a great title called, great track called Life Is for those trance aficionados. That is classic. What is the name of that album? That is one of the most amazing trance albums of all time by Coxbox. That Life Is on. It's escaping me right now. I'll have to look at that. Venito Pam. So it looks like Pamelo Cherone here with a new work on Zora. Very interesting, beautiful work as usual. Free mint. So keeping super prolific there. And here's a pretty cool pixelated work, 8-bit crosswalk by Ugo Digi and Nipetrov. So interesting collaboration here. Ugo Digi reworked the photo, so taking a photo, turning it into a digital painting, and animating it using Graphics 2 graphic software from 1996, a popular software, from what I understand. I don't think I've ever used it. It's looking great though. Again, like we were saying with PicSquare, if you ever hit a roadblock, try a new software because it opens up. Softwares are kind of like different brushes, you know, in the digital world, or different paint or different mediums, right? When you think of gel medium or paste or whatever your case is. Anyway, beautiful work here. Looks like it's started from a photo, inspired by photos of people walking on the streets with a very interesting white background there. Cool work. This is quite beautiful too. This is exponential, elongated flat cubes, 100 frames, 50 frames per second. Just a nice animated abstract here as we continue. This is on X, and that's got 3,000 views. Continuing on, this is Luis Ponce with an interesting piece here. 0.15 is, and I think there are 25 if I'm not mistaken here. Card 25. Actually, I'm not sure exactly how many. Maybe addition of, not sure. It seems like this is an addition, if I'm not mistaken here. Let's make it large. Anyway, all to say, interesting piece with this kind of eyeball head person at the top of what almost look like turntables, but not quite, and then pouring out these pixels into the eye. Maybe an artist pouring the pixels into the eye of this figure here, if you can see that, with this big kind of interesting background here. So, interesting piece. Noise Everywhere is the title. And let's continue on here. And another one by Glitchtown Arcade with a space theme here, Nonsense of the Universe. Cool work here, another Nintendo Glitch ROM. And continuing on, we also have Retroman, Stage 4 by Retromani, Realm of Zinum. So this was quite beautiful as well, kind of very nicely with our last piece here. And let's see if we can get it to play. And I don't think there's no volume on this one. So pretty cool piece here. Pretty cool concept piece, really. It's like a video game series. And even the way that the spaceship is kind of slowly going through the head of this animated figure right in the mouth there. Really, you will not survive without our help. Pretty cool work. Retro Man, can you hear me? Retaro Man. Pretty cool. Very cool work. And let's see what's going on here. If my computer can handle all of these tabs. 3 Tezos and the addition of 50. And let's see how many to go. Cap'n picking one up here. And 22 to go. So selling really nicely there. So big congrats to Retromani. Very cool work. Continuing on, Zed, good morning, Paper Hands. I thought this was kind of cool. Kind of had a bit of a kind of crypto art feel to it in this work here, and just great colors, instantly recognizable. And again, looks like a photocopier with a hand going through it, Paper Hands. Continuing on, this is Ellie Pritz with a very interesting piece. We'll see if there's any volume on it. Mr. and Mrs. Spoons sold for 0.069 ETH. Interesting piece here. This kind of morphing figure from Ellie Pritz. So maybe this is, so there is maybe Mrs. Spoons. Maybe that's Mr., not sure. But all to say, pretty interesting animation here. What is going on here? Do we have, I assume this is a MP4 because you can have volume on it. So it must be an MP4. Nice sale, selling yesterday for 0.69. So maybe 125 if I had to guess, 150. Kurt Hustle Collective. Kurt Hustle Collective said knock you out. So LL Cool JNK. So another interesting piece here, almost looking like an album cover from JNK, keeping with the music theme. And we see one of those characters from earlier Kurt Hustle Collective works. And here is a gallery drone. This is a gallery drone, a gallery with an unknown location, also by Kurt Hustle Collective. So kind of a speculative gallery here. Let's get full volume. Kind of glitched out. So interesting work as ever from Kurt Hustle. This is 9 Tezos, edition of 13, and they are now available online. So just minted the last day or two. And here, continuing on, Klaus with some more beautiful compositions here, just racing through these compositions. Number 78 here. This sold for 24 Tezos to Gosov. Let's take a look. Just the color, the interesting composition kind of boils down a lot of what you want from an animated abstract work. Kind of glitch artwork would hang really well with the Kuro works. And just kind of fairly, I'd argue fairly, I don't know if I'd say, I was going to say minimal compositions. I mean, that's probably an overstatement. They're not super minimal, but they're kind of minimal in concept to a certain degree. Like it's taking a simple visual idea and then just working with it, processing it enough till you get somewhere. This beautiful kind of overlay here, this beautiful, beautiful purple here, which you see the noise over here goes over top the purple. Just really, really interesting, nice work here. Composition 77. I quite like how they're all called compositions too. Kind of evokes a bit of a Kandinsky vibe to it. Here's another one by Klaus, number 79. As we continue to race here, almost a similar kind of glitchery going on here. And most of these are selling. This also went to Gosov for 24 Tezos. So big appetite for these works here. Number 76, composition number 76 going to I'm Utros for 24 Tezos. Put it on secondary for 55. Kind of a different concept here, but that's still very rich, beautiful color, which is a characteristic, I'd say, of almost all of those works, is a very rich, gorgeous color. Mika Oladev with just a GM that I thought was pretty interesting. Let me see. I thought this kind of fuzzed out, gradiented out background was super interesting in contrast with some of these kind of pixels, these, for lack of a better term, cycling pixels here in the front. Interesting. It was the background that really stood out to me. I thought just very interesting. Here's another one by Walk, again, seeming to play with September 11th here, 9/11, and playing with the noise, some sort of noise here, processing what I think is a 9/11, and here we're at 953, and this sold for only 2 Tezos, so you can get a cheap Walk these days if you're lucky, if you're kind of paying attention there on the auctions there. Claudia Bralonu, Landscape 08. I mean, it's a 1-of-1 Walk. Just think about that. For 2 Tezos, offset painting patterns. So here we are, a GLB. It looks like a painting. And so pretty interesting work here. And it's almost bleeding off of the painting, turning into a sculpture. A collection of paintings mixing 3D scans. Remember Psycho, from nature with born digital terrains, 3D modeled objects and materials created in a game engine and in a 3D painting software. So this is 15 Tezos, edition of 25, selling very well. Gozo there, and more. All sorts of people. Ellie Trader. Nice one. So doing very well there. So I think probably almost sold out. There are 3 left at 15 Tezos. Here is Elby on Zora, and we still need that kind of maximize. Every dream has a meaning. Just a cool work here by Elby, as you can see here, full blast here, and I believe that's a free mint on Zora. 34 minted so far, so pretty cool. So Zora's still delivering for artists, by the way, and artists still minting there. Also, continuing on, let's see if we can get this loading up here. Lily Illo, a blueprint for thought and form. So seeing more chairs here, but kind of a blueprint style here from Lily Illo. So more super interesting AI artwork. Again, boiling things down a little bit. Very nice work posted on X. Yoain, with more interesting, kind of more painterly experimentation here. Let's look, All Beginnings End, yoain.eth. Very interesting AI artwork here, and often, again, editing and adding Yoain's own painterliness. It almost feels like a physical, this one, interestingly, or maybe that Yoain was applying more digital paint than usual. It has a bit more of a textured feel to it, interestingly. The other ones are textured. This one has more texture kind of feel to it. Danielle King, Echoes of Forgotten Tales, my long-form generative AI project with Alexandra Jovanik, minting now on Mprops. So more Mprops mints. Kind of has a, I guess you'd call that Art Nouveau. Is that what you'd call that? Sort of feel to it. And here you see 2 figures done with AI, a collaboration, kind of classic AI margins there. And the white space on the margins, 2 figures talking. Again, kind of has a bit of an Art Nouveau feel. Echoes of Forgotten Tales, a generative AI project. And you can check that out here on Mprops. And as we go into the AI, Ocote, with another work, Ritual to Defend Our Roots. Kind of a more elaborate painting here from Ocote, I would argue, especially in the water here. And again, it looks like a ritual, as stated in the title here. And then we see this figure here with this AI guitar, as you can clearly see here. Very beautiful AI artwork here. Back to the, what I'm tempted to call the Latin American palette here, and the sun in the background. Very interesting series as usual. 250, 2 Tezos 50 on an edition of 7. Still available on Primary. Continuing on, Tukes, GM Fam. Interesting experiment here from Tukes. And continuing, just an abstract there. Also, No Hygiene continues here. Has been making a ton of sales. It's very impressive. 30 Tezos, because they're so experimental and impressive on the side of the collectors in the scene who are saying this is different. I think it's really cool. Don't Drink It. AI artwork made with Midjourney. 4,000 by 4,000, edition of 1. Also the power of releasing editions of 1 as well. So interesting AI artwork from No Hygiene as usual. And here is some recent work I am following. No, am I following? There we go. I thought I already followed No Hygiene. Anyway, here we go. Here are some of the works here. Again, a lot of experimentation, maybe sometimes using video games, kind of weird pixelation. That one was beautiful. Only 6 Tezos for this one, this one of 1. So more super interesting work there. This is Zach from Zora, Zach Krevitt, Titus. So putting out what looks like some AI artwork here. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can get the full thing. Pretty nice piece here. This is on Zora, Titus. And I think I brought up Zach's page here. So this is a free mint on Zora. 27 have been minted already. Pretty nice piece. And here are some of the other ones. And I saw this on Twitter too. Just interesting animals. So yeah, not too much information there, but you see it looks like it's a series of 3 so far of these, what look like AI artworks. So interesting work from Zach, who's also going to be back on in March, I'm happy to say, on the Twitter Spaces. Sabato with some Autotopia works. This is Poderosa. And as we wrap up the show here, and here is just another kind of very, for lack of better terms, zany, AI artwork from, there seems to be humor in it. It looks like a dinosaur, kind of playing with the just weird results, it seems, from AI, generative AI photography documenting humans and their cars. And always, so that is the unifying theme here, is humans and their cars, created with Midjourney 6.0 and edited with Photoshop. So edited afterwards, interestingly. Antigone, of course, and so another playing with cars and humans. And of course, Antigone, the 3rd book, the third part of Oedipus Rex, very famous play Antigone. So interesting title on that one. From Sabato, and this sold for 25 Tezos to Clown Vamp. Let's just see how the other one did. That one is still on the market for 25 Tezos. So again, one of ones at a reasonable price are still moving here. Little Cakes. So another cool AI artwork here from Little Cakes, from almost this person that seems to be like a lamp here, lit from within. And then tempting to think that this maybe is the person kind of looking on at their own portrait, perhaps, not sure. I guess the hair is a little different, so not positive. Anyway, beautiful work from Little Cakes, as usual. Let's continue. Shirley Preston with an interesting piece, Road Trippin' with Professor Leary. So interesting. Again, I think we were looking at a work by Shirley Preston the other day. We're again kind of, using maybe the magic wand to remove certain areas and then putting video in the background. Maybe a reference to Further here. The bus in The Merry Pranksters, Ken Casey in The Merry Pranksters. Road Trippin' with, of course, Professor, one assumes, Tim Leary with a rock over top. Not sure what that references to. But it looks like taking an AI artwork and then processing it, in a special way with what looks like video in the background. So interesting work there. As we move into the physicals, this one was a real head turner. I don't know about you. This style that Adam Lister Studio did, Joker, collection of recent work releasing Thursday, January 18th. Really beautiful work here. Just loving the style, so powerful, and can take any image. This one's particularly powerful, almost like a self-reference to what they're doing here as an artist with this portrayal of the Joker. Beautiful. Even just turning that totally vertical, the cigarette there. It's almost like reducing everything to perpendicular lines. Very interesting. Helio Santos, who does, of course, the paint plot tool. Today's progress, I think this is a landscape painted by machines with more layers and time I put on it. Pretty beautiful. Again, it kind of has a slight Monet-like quality a little bit, and it's just kind of out of focusedness, and I say that in a positive sense. There's also kind of like from just a process point of view, it's touched like Syrah, I would argue, but again, a little more what I'd call painterly when we look up here. Almost like there's something very delightful about it. It's kind of like Impressionism, but not. Bondoso Bandido, with an edgy work, again, just seemingly putting out a ton of work here, like several works a day. And here is just a really cool kind of Greek reference, but with a tattoo on it. So washing off the tattoo seemingly here in this work. Maybe a bit of humor on that one. And here is another work, playing with the dollar bills, which I think I've seen Machine use as well. I'm not sure what the reference is here, but It's Not Gallery, I think, referring to Bondoso Bandido, who is Henrique Herms, if I'm pronouncing that right. So again, using the airbrush in the middle here, and then kind of acrylic paint seemingly around the edge. Maybe that's oil, not exactly sure. And that, my friends, is your show. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, take care. It works.